Hello everyone. So in this video we are going to cover the Vision IAS Monthly Magazine of March 2026. The PDF of this lecture is available on the Civils Academy app. The link is given in the description box. Now let's start. So as usual, first let's start with the polity section. Now in polity section, first news is related to UCC. In a very simple sense, that is Uniform Civil Code. First thing first, what is UCC? See, in criminal matters, we have a common application of law that is basically referred as IPC, which has now been converted into BNS. It was IPC, Indian Penal Code, BNS is Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. So we have a similar application of the criminal laws. But when it comes to civil laws, the application is different according to the communities. And that's why there is a demand that there should be a uniform civil code. Now, what is civil in this case? For example, issues related to marriage, issues related to succession, and so on. So why this topic was in news recently? Because recently two states had implemented UCC. One is Uttarakhand, and recently Gujarat also implemented it. That's why this was in news. Now, is there any constitutional provision for this? Yes, Article 44 says that there should be uniform civil code. Basically, it talks about the DPSP, Directive Principle of State Policy. Now let's have a look at the news. So recently Gujarat became the second state after Uttarakhand. Please remember that Goa already had UCC because of the Portuguese influence. Okay, but these states had implemented it later. Now, for the implementation of UCC in Gujarat, basically a committee was set up, that was Ranjana Prakash Desai Committee, Justice Ranjana Prakash Desai Committee. Justice Ranjana Prakash Desai was also in news because she was the head of the Delimitation Commission for Jammu and Kashmir. That's one news. Second is she is the chairperson of the 8th Pay Commission. Pay Commission is usually set up by the government to recommend the increment in the salaries of the government employees. Please remember, Pay Commission is not a constitutional body, neither it is a statutory body. It is set up through executive action. Now there are important cases related to this UCC. One case is related to the Shah Bano case, in which the court basically specified about the requirement of UCC. This is quite important case. So on one side, the examiner can give you the name of these cases. On another side, examiner can simply ask these cases are related to. So usually state PCs have this kind of tendency to ask the most important cases. Even UPSC asks these kind of cases. Okay. Second is related to Sarla Mudgal case. Basically, in this case, the court emphasized on the gender equality, that why UCC is important. Please understand, currently the practices are regulated through the personal laws. The problem with the personal laws is that they have a biasness, or basically they are discriminatory against women, and that's why it is said that in order to ensure women empowerment, we need to implement the UCC. Apart from that, there is a case related to Shaira Bano, in which the instant triple talaq was declared unconstitutional. And then there is a Jose Paulo case, in which basically the court highlighted that we can implement the Goa model of civil code, uniform civil code. So basically states can learn from Goa and can implement their UCC accordingly. Next is related to the food sector in our country. Please understand one thing. For the food safety and standards, there is a body named as FSSAI. What is FSSAI? Food Safety and Standards Authority of India. It is a statutory body. It is under Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. It set the standards that what should be the quality of food, what items are permitted, what items are not permitted. For example, a few years ago, Maggie was banned because of the presence of MSG, that is monosodium glutamate. So who decide whether a particular chemical is allowed or not? That is being decided by FSSAI. Now, if you want to start a food business, basically you need FSSAI license. So previously, the condition was that you need to get it renewal after a specific duration. But now the commission, or basically the body, is saying that once you get a license, it is perpetual. That means you need not to renew it time and again. So that is one significant change, and that's why this entire issue was in news. Now read this news. FSSAI license registration no longer need a periodic renewal. That simply means now they will have a longer validity. Now, who need a license? So registration is required if the annual turnover is up to 1.5 CR. Previously, this amount was 12 lakh rupee. State license is required if the turnover is from 1.5 to 50 CR. and central license is required if the turnover is above 50. Next is related to CAPF bill. Understand, CAPF is Central Armed Police Forces. They are under Ministry of Home Affairs. Now this bill basically talks about the head of CAPF. That means who should be appointed as the chief of any particular Central Armed Police Force. Now understand the conflict here. The head is usually IPS officer. On the other hand, the officers from these CAPF say that basically this demoralizes. Why this demoralizes? Because we are serving this organization throughout our life, but we will not be able to lead it. The counter argument of the government is that since IPS have a broader experience, diverse experience, that's why they are given this opportunity to lead the organization. So basically, this bill, in a very simple sense, fix the process that who should be appointed as the head of the CAPF. Now understand, these CAPF are under MHA. For example, CRPF is there, BSF is there, CISF, ITBP, and SSB. It does not. This entire provision is not applicable on Assam Rifles and NSG. So examiner can set a trap that this will be applicable on all the CAPF. No, it will not be applicable on all the CAPF. So what is the provision? Provision is that IPS officers will be posted. So 50% of the IG post in these CAPF will be basically for IPS. 67% of ADG post and all the DG and SDG post are reserved for the IPS officers. In a very simple sense, let's say someone got selected as assistant commandant. Let's say they got selected as assistant commandant in BSF. Even after serving the organization, they will not be able to lead the organization because that leading position will be filled by IPS. That is a major controversy here. Next is related to Consumer Justice Report. So basically, this report is released by India Justice Report. Now, as the name suggests, it talks about the consumer rights. Now, what is happening is that please understand, for the protection of consumer rights, we have CCPA. What is CCPA? Central Consumer Protection Authority. In a very simple sense, as a consumer, let's say when we purchase something and we did not get the services which we were promised, so there is a complaint mechanism. E-Daakhil portal is there. So basically, the complaint can be filed in this portal. Okay, now this report simply says that there is a lot of pendency, the cases are increasing, and the case disposal rate is quite slow. That's why the number of cases are increasing. In a very simple sense, why this is increasing? Because there is a vacancy at a different level. That means the posts are not filled. So what is happening? We don't have sufficient manpower to ensure the speedy disposal of those cases. Next is related to postal ballot. Now understand the concept of postal ballot. In a very simple sense, let's say I am a voter. So I will receive the ballot paper electronically. That means in a very simplified sense, let's say I will receive this online. Okay, I will get a printout of that ballot paper. Ballot paper basically means name of the candidate and the symbols in a very simple sense. So I will get the ballot paper, I will print it out, I will vote my I will cast my vote, and then I will post it. This paper need to be posted back to the election authorities. This is basically referred as a postal ballot. Now, recently, Election Commission allowed it for the absentee voters. First thing first, who are absentee voters? Absentee voters are those voters who are of more than 85 years of age or who are differentially abled. So, two major categories are there. One who are 85 plus in terms of age, and second one is differentially abled. Apart from that, also it is also allowed, this postal ballot is also allowed for special category of voters. For example, it is allowed for the president, vice president, governors, cabinet ministers, etc. It is also allowed for service voters. Who are service voters? For example, armed forces or CAPF officials or government officials who are let's say serving the country abroad. So let's say Indian officials are posted in some other country. Now, of course, they won't be able to come back to cast their vote. So what happens is that they receive their ballot paper online, they cast their vote, and then they send it back. This is how this postal ballot thing works. So examiner can simply set a trap that basically in this case what is happening is that you receive a ballot paper physically or something like that. No, the incoming is digital. In a very simple sense, you will receive a digital copy, you will have to get a print out, and subsequently you have to post it back. Next is related to Media Certification and Monitoring Committee. Understand, in a very simple sense, election commission ensure the fairness in the election process. Now what happens is that because of the advent of technology, the political parties use a different kind of campaign on the social media, which may violate the moral code of conduct. That's why election commission said that all these kind of advertisement, they require certification, prior certification or prior approval from the election commission authorities, so that it can be ensured that there is a level playing field and MCC is not violated. What is MCC? Model Code of Conduct. Please understand, MCC does not have statutory backing. Why it does not have, or why election commission does not push for the statutory backing? Reason or the justification is that once there will be statutory backing, then it can be challenged in the court, and once it can be challenged in the court, then it may delay the entire election process. So that's why this is the argument given against the statutory backing. So in this case, what is happening? The Election Commission of India issued the orders requiring the pre-certification of all the political advertisement on the electronic and social media by the Media Certification and Monitoring Committee. In a very simple sense, you want to advertise something, first get it certified so that it does not create any problems. That is the crux of this matter. Next is related to Sujal Gaon ID. In a very simple sense, what we are doing, Sujal basically means we are talking about clean water. So what we are trying to do, let's say in rural area, there are different water pipelines. So this is basically drinking water infrastructure. What we are doing, we are mapping that infrastructure and we are giving unique identity or unique ID to each of these water infrastructure. Let's say there are 4 pipeline in a rural area. So this is P1, this is P2, this is P3, and this is P4. So each pipeline has been given some unique identity so that we can trace everything. That is the objective of this Sujal Gaon ID. In a very simple sense, what we are trying to do, we are trying to map, or we are trying to prepare a digital map of rural drinking water infrastructure, and ultimate objective is to ensure that everyone have the access to clean drinking water. This is our mission under this Har Ghar Jal initiative. So with this, we have covered the polity section. Now we are going to cover the IR section. So in IR section, first news is related to the conflict between the Iran and Israel. Now before that conflict, first let's try to understand a few basic concepts. See, the natural uranium basically consists of uranium-235 and uranium-238. Uranium-235 is fissile material. That simply means it is capable of creating chain reaction. But the problem is that natural uranium have only 0.7% of this uranium-235. The remaining part of natural uranium is U-238, which is fertile. Now, what is fertile in this case? Let's try to understand it using one simple example. Fertile is, let's say, it is a wet matchbox. We cannot use it directly. First, we have to convert it in some other form. So what we will do, we will convert this fertile material into fissile, and then that fissile material will create the chain reaction. Okay, now the natural uranium have this composition. So 0.7% of 235 and 99% is 238. If someone would want to make a nuclear weapon, they need a higher concentration of this uranium-238. This entire process is basically referred as uranium enrichment. Now, what was the allegation against Iran? Allegation was that Iran is involved in the uranium enrichment. Please understand, this enrichment is not required for the production of nuclear energy, but it is required for the production of nuclear weapon. Okay, now the argument of the Israel is that if Iran will manufacture a nuclear weapon, basically that will be existential threat for Israel. So that's why they attacked the uranium enrichment facilities of Iran. That is the entire issue. Now from exam point of view, you need to understand this entire thing so that you understand how these things are operating. Okay, understand one more thing. India have roughly 2% of uranium reserves of the global reserve, and roughly 25% of the thorium reserves. So that's why in our nuclear energy program, we are planning to use our thorium reserves, and that's why we have a 3-stage nuclear program in which the second stage is FBR. What is FBR? FBR is basically fast breeder reactor. What does that mean? In a very simple sense, it is going to produce more fuel than what it will consume. So that is the major difference. Okay, now coming back to the original topic. So basically US and Israel launched the military strikes on Iran under the Operation Epic Fury. So the name of the operation is quite important, that is Epic Fury. To evacuate our own people, India launched this Operation Sindhu. So basically we tried to evacuate our people through Armenia. So that was Operation Sindhu. Apart from that, because of the blockade in the Strait of Hormuz, the supply of the gas and petroleum was disrupted, and that's why, to ensure that there is a regular supply, the government of India also launched Operation Urja Suraksha. So these operation names are quite important, especially those which are launched by India. They can be directly asked in a statement or in the match of the following type of the question. Now understand the concept of axis of resistance. Basically, Iran is accused of providing support to different militant groups in different countries. For example, in Yemen, it provides support to the Houthi rebels. In Lebanon and in Gaza, it provides support to Hamas and Hezbollah. So Hezbollahs are active in Lebanon and Hamas are active in the Gaza or in the West Bank. So let's have a look at the geographical location. So this is Iran basically, and this is Lebanon. In Lebanon, Hezbollahs are active. In Gaza and in West Bank, Hamas are active. In Yemen, Houthis are active. And because of that, what is happening, it is quite difficult to pass through this area, and that is why the cost of shipping has increased. So you need to understand the geographical location. Now apart from that, few other terms are important from exam perspective. For first is JCPOA. What is JCPOA? So it is a joint comprehensive plan of action. In a very simple sense, this is basically referred as Iran nuclear deal. What was the context of this Iran nuclear deal? In a very simple sense, it simply means Iran will not make nuclear weapon, and the Western countries led by USA, they will not impose sanctions or restrictions on Iran. That was the basic JCPOA deal. But during its first term, the Trump administration decided to withdraw from this entire thing, and subsequently the tensions increased between these countries. Apart from that, when it comes to relationship between Israel and the Western countries, or Israel and the what should I say, Middle East countries or Muslim countries in the West Asia, then there is a Abraham Accord. Abraham Accord basically refers to the initiatives taken to normalize the relationship between the Israel on one hand and Muslim world on the other hand. So just remember this thing. Recently, few other Muslim countries decided to join it. That's why you will see that the conflict between, let's say, Israel and Saudi is not that much severe, or let's say Israel and UAE is not that much severe. In fact, there is a I2U2 organization also. What is I2U2? In that, India is there, Israel is there, UAE and US is there. So you can understand that countries like UAE are in a grouping in which Israel is also there. So that simply means the relationships are being normalized, and they are normalized as per the provisions of this Abraham Accord. Now, when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz, please understand, everyone know about the significance of Strait of Hormuz when it comes to petroleum and natural gas, but it is also important for the supply chain of the helium, and that's why the global helium supply chain was disrupted, because roughly 33% of the supply passes through this area, and that's why it is important. Now, as far as India is concerned, roughly 50% of our oil demand passes through this thing. When it comes to oil, India import roughly 85% of its oil, and that is why we are quite vulnerable when it comes to the conflict in West Asia. Even though we are not a direct party, whenever there will be conflict, it will have adverse impact on us. Why so? One is this energy security is there, oil supply, LPG supply. Apart from that, diaspora is also there. Indian diaspora is quite significant in the West Asia. So if there will be conflict, of course our own people will be trapped in those difficult situations. Now apart from that, our fertilizer supply is also impacted. Why so? Because for fertilizer, natural gas is required, and if the gas supply is disrupted, of course it will disrupt the fertilizer supply as well. Apart from that, we are trying to diversify the trade routes. One major route is via Suez Canal, but the problem is that when we try to go through Suez Canal, there is a Red Sea and then there is a control of Houthi rebels. That's why we are exploring alternative options, and one such alternative option is India Middle East Europe Economic Corridor. Now, understand the problem here. Ideally, if we want to make it successful, the Middle East area need to be peaceful. But whenever there is a conflict, of course, that will delay the progress of this entire project. Okay, now coming to Persian Gulf and Strait of Hormuz. So basically, Strait of Hormuz connect the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman. Apart from that, there was one more Kharg Island that was in news because it export 90% of Iranian crude oil. Apart from that, there was one more port in UAE which was in news, and this port in UAE is basically referred as Fujairah port. So let's have a look at the geographical location. So this is basically the Strait of Hormuz. It connects the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman, and this is the port. This is Fujairah port and it is in UAE. Next is related to the conflict between the Pakistan and Afghanistan. Now understand, from exam point of view, users have to understand one major concept, that Durand line is the border between the Afghanistan and Pakistan. Afghanistan basically demand more areas, and that's why there is a conflict. So Pakistan had launched Operation Gajhab Lil Haq, and Afghanistan had launched the Operation Ratul Jal. As far as the geographical location of Durand line is concerned, so basically it is 2600 kilometer border boundary which was drawn in 1893. So this is Durand line. Please remember one thing, that India share a direct border boundary with Afghanistan through Wakhan corridor. Now understand one more important point here. Have a look at the geographical location of Afghanistan. This is Pakistan. The problem is that Pakistan will not allow us the access to Afghanistan. That's why we need Iran to improve our connectivity towards Afghanistan. Now, why Afghanistan is so significant? Of course, there are multiple factors, but one factor is to put pressure on Pakistan. Please remember that Pakistan is a hostile country, so we need to make sure that we have our good presence around Pakistan, so that if there is a requirement, we can basically these areas. This is basically referred as strategic depth. What is strategic depth? If Pakistan will try to create anything to damage India, so they will not prefer to create it on this side. Why they won't prefer to create it on this side? Because it is in close proximity to India. So what they will do, they will use this area towards Afghanistan to create the infrastructure to damage India, and that's why we need better presence and better connectivity in Afghanistan. Next is related to India and Canada. So recently the Prime Minister of Canada was on a visit to India. Subsequently, the uranium supply agreement has been signed. Now understand, the target of the two countries is that we will increase our trade, and the target is $50 billion by 2030. Just for your reference, the target with USA is 10 times, that is $500 billion. Target with Russia is roughly $100 billion. Our overall target of foreign export is roughly $2 trillion. Out of that $2 trillion, 1 trillion is supposed to be in goods and 1 trillion is supposed to be in services. That is our target by 2030. Basically, Canada have sufficient uranium reserve, and that's why it is going to supply uranium to us. And that is why there has been an agreement with Cameco, which is going to supply uranium to India. Apart from that, Canada has also decided to join Global Biofuel Alliance and International Solar Alliance, and India also support the entry of Canada into this IORA, that is Indian Ocean Rim Association. Apart from that, Canada is also the leading player in pulses production, and that's why there will be a joint research center, and that joint that joint research center is going to be in National Institute of Food Technology, which is going to be in Kundli. So that is going to be joint pulse protein center of excellence. Apart from that, Canada is also the leading player in terms of the production of the potash, which is quite important for agriculture, and that's why we need to make sure that we have a consistent supply, because we are import dependent. Next is related to para diplomacy. Para diplomacy basically means the states are trying to establish direct relationship with other countries. Usually, understand, the foreign affairs is in the domain of union government, but now the central government or union government, basically through MEA, that is Ministry of External Affairs, is trying to increase the role of states in this entire diplomacy. Why so? So that states can attract more and more investment, which will lead to more and more economic development in the state. So recently, the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, basically he visited Singapore and Japan to attract more investment. Next is related to different conflict areas. First is Dimona. So it is Israel's nuclear facility, and this is in Negev Desert. Second is Natanz. So these three sites are quite important. They can be directly asked. One is Isfahan, one is Natanz, and one is Fordo. Then there is a Al Udeid Air Base of USA. It is largest air base of USA, and it is situated in Qatar. Why it was in news? Because when US decided to hit Iran, in a response to that, Iran decided to hit the US assets in West Asia, and that's why this airbase was under attack. Apart from that, there was Ras Lahan Industrial City. So it is a main gas facility of Qatar. It was under attack, and that's why it was in use. Apart from that, there is a South Pass area. So this is world's largest natural gas field, which is shared by Iran and Qatar. In addition to that, Litani River and Tyre City were also in use, and they are situated in Lebanon. Next is related to Panama Canal. So basically, it connects the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. This is the geographical location. So this is Atlantic Ocean, this is Pacific Ocean, and this is North America, South America. This is Panama Canal. Next is related to Trincomalee project. So basically this is in Sri Lanka. Now what is happening is that during Britishers times, oil containers were set up here. These oil containers can be used for the storage of oil. Now understand, since we are import dependent, we need to make sure that we have sufficient reserve if anything goes wrong. If there is a crisis in the West Asian region, uh, if we will not have reserve, we will be immediately impacted. So we should have sufficient reserve. That's why in India we are developing strategic petroleum reserve. Apart from that, we are also developing few containers in Sri Lanka under this project. The name of the project is Trincomalee project. So this is a part of India's Mahasagar doctrine. What is Mahasagar? Mutual and holistic advancement for security across the regions. So we are developing the oil tank farm in a very simple sense to store the oil. Now this is the geographical location. So this is Trincomalee project, and this is entire country of Sri Lanka. Next is related to the bilateral swap agreement. In a very simple sense, let's say there is a bilateral swap agreement between India and Japan. So what is being done under this agreement, that whenever India will require dollars, we can get dollars from Japan. Similarly, whenever Japan will need dollars, they can get it from India. So that is a swap. Swap basically means exchange. So that is a bilateral agreement between India and Japan for the exchange of currencies for US dollar. Next is related to Sagar doctrine. What is Sagar? Security and growth for all in the region. In a very simple sense, this is a doctrine. Two important doctrines are there by the India. One is Sagar, and second is Mahasagar. Mahasagar is an extended version of Sagar itself. So in Sagar, what we are saying, we are trying to cooperate with our neighbors for overall growth and development. So as a part of that Sagar doctrine, recently Indian Ocean naval symposium was conducted, and that was conducted by the Indian Navy. Next is related to the Globe Network. So just remember that this Globe Network is for anti-corruption. Now as far as anti-corruption is concerned, our agencies such as CBI and ED are part of this entire network. Globe stands for Global Operational Network of Anti-Corruption Law Enforcement Authorities. So the name itself is self-explanatory. Once you understand the name, then you need not to mug up anything. This is supported by United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. And in IR, the last news is related to Raisina dialogue. See, Raisina hills are basically the starting point of this Aravalli range in a very simplified sense. Okay, this dialogue is conducted by Ministry of External Affairs in association with Observer Research Foundation, and recently the 11th edition was organized. What was the theme? The theme was Samaskar, and it was organized by MEA along with ORF. Okay, next is related to the economy section, and in economy section the first topic is Bharat Audyogik Vikas Yojana. In a very simple sense, it talks about the industrial development. So recently the Union Cabinet approved this initiative, Bharatiya Audyogik Vikas Yojana to develop 100 plug and play industrial park. Now, what is this concept of plug and play? Plug and play basically means that everything will be readily available. You just come and start your production. So the government is providing all the facilities. Now, why this industrial development is important? Because the contribution of the secondary sector is more or less same, even though various initiatives such as Make in India, Startup India, Stand Up India has been announced. So the objective here is to boost the industrial activity. Now this will be implemented by Ministry of Commerce and Industry, and to be specific, within that there is a organization named as National Industrial Corridor Development Corporation. Okay, so that is something which you need to keep in mind. Now understand, as far as industrial corridors are concerned, industrial corridor basically means a specific path which connect the industrial areas. Let's say there is one industrial area here, one industrial area here. So if we will connect these two industrial area, that is basically referred as industrial corridor. Next topic is related to DPI. What is DPI? It is digital public infrastructure. Let's try to understand it using very simple example. Let's say there is a road. Road is a public infrastructure because government has created this infrastructure to provide services to the people. If the infrastructure is created for digital services, then it is basically referred as a digital public infrastructure. For example, UPI is there, Unified Payment Interface. So that is a digital infrastructure, and that's why it is a part of DPI, Digital Public Infrastructure. So we have already discussed the example of UPI. Now understand what is UPI, Unified Payment Interface. As far as UPI is concerned, please remember 2-3 important details. Nepal was the first country to adopt UPI. In Africa, Namibia became the first country to adopt UPI. As far as UPI QR is concerned, Bhutan became the first country to adopt QR-based payment. In a very simple sense, it adopted the India's. Next is related to Fiscal Health Index. So basically, this index is released by Niti Aayog, and as per that index, Odisha is on top position. In a very simple sense, it categorizes states according to their fiscal conditions, like how much revenue they are generating, how they are borrowing, from where they are borrowing, whether they are able to generate revenue or not, what kind of expenditure they are involved in, it is revenue expenditure or capital expenditure, basically the quality of expenditure. So it is based on 5 pillars. What are those 5 pillars? The quality of expenditure, revenue mobilization, how much revenue they are generating. Then there is a fiscal prudence, debt index, and debt sustainability. Fiscal prudence basically means whether they are careful or not while spending money. Debt index basically means how much they have borrowed. Debt sustainability basically means whether they will be able to repay this borrowing or no. So as far as ranking is concerned, Odisha is on top performing position in achievers category. In the Himalayan and Northeast states category, Arunachal Pradesh is on top position. In front runners, Gujarat is on top position. Next topic is related to the semiconductor sector. So recently Prime Minister inaugurated the first such semiconductor facility, which is in Sanand in Gujarat. So this is by Micron Technology, and this is India's first commercial semiconductor assembly facility. So that's why it is important. A very straightforward statement can be there that the first such facility is situated in, and just to set a trap, examiner can give you the option of Karnataka, but please remember it is Gujarat. Now as far as semiconductor manufacturing is concerned, Taiwan is the leading player. Now to promote the semiconductor sector, the government of India had announced India Semiconductor Mission 2.0. Apart from that, a design linked incentive scheme is also announced. Basically, government is giving incentive to come to India and to help in the designing of these semiconductor chips. Apart from that, various microprocessors are developed. For example, Shakti is there, Vikram is there, and Dhruv 64. What are microprocessor? In a very simple sense, just like computers have CPU, the basic items, electronic items, for example, refrigerator is there. So that microprocessor is the brain of that electronic item. Next is related to RCS scheme. So there is a scheme, Ude Desh Ka Aam Nagrik. Udan scheme is there. The modified version of Udan is basically RCS. What is RCS? Regional Connectivity Scheme. The name itself is self-explanatory, that we are trying to connect the regional areas to the international and national airports. So under this, there will be development of 100 airport from unserved airstrip and 200 modern helipad. Apart from that, we will promote the use of helicopters, and in that context, there is one civilian helicopter which is by HAL. What is HAL? Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. What is the name of the civilian helicopter? It is Dhruv NG. What is NG? NG is a new generation. Next is related to the credit guarantee for microfinance institutions. Let me give you a very simple example. Let's say this is some NBFC. What is NBFC? Non-banking financial company. So NBFC is going to give loan to the people. It is giving loan to those people whose loan requirement is quite small. This is basically referred as microfinance. If the borrowing amount is less and the money is given to the families with income of less than 3 lakh rupee per annum, then it is basically referred as microfinance. As the name suggests, we're talking about very small amount of loan. Usually these people do not have the capacity to provide collateral, and that's why it is a risky loan. So there is a high risk of default. That's why the role of credit guarantee comes into picture. Now these are member lending institution. Member lending institution basically means these will provide money to NBFC. NBFC in turn will provide money to the people. Okay, the credit guarantee facility will be given to MLI. In a very simple sense, the facility is that if, let's say, if I'm giving loan to you and if there is a credit guarantee facility, so the provision is that if you won't pay me, the credit guarantee facility will pay me. They act as a credit guarantor. That is the entire provision of this scheme. So now read it, that the government has launched the 2.0 version with a 20,000 crore rupees corpus. Now what is this NBFC MFI? These are microfinance institutions. So they are going to provide loan to the people. Now who is going to provide money to NBFC? So that will be given by MLI. What is MLI? Member lending institution. Now who is going to provide this credit guarantee facility? So this will be given by National Credit Guarantee Trust Company. Now on similar lines, there is a credit guarantee facility for MSME. Please remember, recently two more changes were announced. Number one, previously this facility was available only for manufacturing MSME. Now it has been expanded, so even now service based MSME can get the benefit under this scheme. That's first change. Second change is that previously there was a restriction that let's say you are receiving a loan, so you will have to spend 75% of that money in the machinery. So let's say if I received a loan of 100 rupee, I need to spend 75 rupees on machinery. Now that 75% has been reduced to 60%. So that is second change. Next is related to the revision in the base year for GDP. Understand what is GDP, gross domestic product. What will be the final value of all the goods and services which we have produced in our domestic boundary in a particular year. The data is released by MOSPI. What is MOSPI? Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Now for comparison, we basically have a base year. So we compare our current performance to that year. Previously this base year was 2011-12. Now that has been updated to 2022-23. Easy way to remember that 11 is there, so just double it. That will be 22. Otherwise what will happen in real exam, you may be confused because examiner can just change it to let's say 20, 23, 24, and then you will be confused. So just remember that it is double of 11. That means 22 will be there. Now understand, we usually measure our fiscal deficit as a percentage of GDP. So if the size of our GDP goes down and the fiscal deficit amount remains same, then in percentage it will increase. Let me give you a very simple example. Let's say our borrowing is 5 rupee. Fiscal deficit is nothing but borrowing. Our fiscal deficit is 5 rupee, and let's say our GDP size is 100. So how much percentage it will be there? 5%. Now let's say we have updated our base. So instead of 100, now our GDP became 95. So in percentage, 5% will increase, and instead of 5%, it will be more than 5%. So examiner can simply set a trap that because of revision of the base year, our GDP has gone down, size of GDP has gone down, and therefore the percentage fiscal deficit has gone up. So that will be a correct statement. Now read this statement. The nominal size of economy was revised downward. Downward basically means the size got reduced, which automatically pushed the revised fiscal deficit estimate to 4.5% of the GDP. You need not to mug up the exact number, but you need to understand the concept. Next is related to inflation target for 2026-2031. Please remember, there is a concept of inflation targeting. That simply means Government of India provide the target to RBI that you have to maintain inflation in this range. What is that range? The range is to 4 plus minus 2%. What is 4 plus minus 2%? Minimum there should be 2% inflation, maximum there should be 6% inflation. Who fix this range? It is Government of India. Who make sure that this inflation stays in this range? So that is the responsibility of MPC. What is MPC? It is Monetary Policy Committee. This was set up on the recommendation of Urjit Patel Committee. Okay, so the job of MPC is simple. They need to maintain inflation in this range. Usually this range is fixed for a duration of 5 years. Recently it was fixed, and that's why it was. Now MPC is a 6-member body. 6-member body is there. In this 6-member, 3 are appointed by RBI, and basically 3 members are from RBI and 3 members are appointed by Government of India. The chairperson is RBI governor. Similar composition is there for Payment Regulatory Board. So just remember that the composition of MPC and the composition of Payment Regulatory Board is similar. Both are headed by RBI governor. Next is related to Index of Core Industries. Now understand, we have IIP, that is Index of Industrial Production. As the name suggests, it simply specify our industrial production. Within that index, there are 8 core industries. Basically, they are the base of entire industrial production. That's why the weightage is quite high. So the weightage of these 8 core industry is roughly 40%. Which are those 8 core industries? So these 8 core industries are coal, crude oil, natural gas, refinery products, fertilizers, steel, cement, and electricity. How much is their weightage in the IIP? It is roughly 40.27%. Who released the IIP data? So it is MOSPI. What is MOSPI? It is Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Within that ministry, there is a body named as NSO. What is NSO? National Statistics Organization, that was formed after the merger of CSO and NSO. Next is related to Annual Survey of Unincorporated Sector Enterprises. In a very simple sense, these are not registered enterprises. So kind of they are the part of informal sector, and that's why to understand them better, this survey is conducted, and this is released by NSO, that is National Statistical Office. So it is under that MOSPI, which we have discussed earlier. What is MOSPI? Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Next is related to FDI, policy for land border countries. Understand, if anyone want to invest into India, there are two major ways. Let's say this is FDI. One way is automatic route. Automatic route basically means they need not any approval to invest into our country. They can invest directly. Second is government approval. Okay. So in 2020, during COVID, Government of India had issued a press note PN3. It is basically referred as PN3. So what is this PN3? It simply said that those countries which share a land boundary with India, if they want to invest, they need to invest through this route. In a very simple sense, let's say there is company from China who want to invest into Indian company. So they need to invest, but first they need prior approval from the government. Now the government has basically updated those rules, and now the government is saying that they can invest through automatic route, that means without any permission, if the investment is less or if the investment is. So now read this statement: non-controlling investors from these countries. Which countries we are talking about? The countries which share the land border boundary with India, holding less than 10% equity, can now investment through automatic route. So in a very simple sense, what we are doing, we are shifting from government approval to automatic route for those investment where the investment is less than 10%, means minority investment is there. For higher investment, the government route will be applicable. Next is related to Essential Commodities Act. In a very simple sense, understand, because of this entire Iran-Israel conflict, the Strait of Hormuz was blocked, and that's why the supply chain was disrupted. That is why, to ensure a regular supply, the government invoked Essential Commodities Act. What is the intention behind this act? If any item is listed under this act, basically there will be limitations on the hoarding of that item. Hoarding and black marketing, basically they create problems. They create artificial inflation. Artificial inflation basically means there is no problem in the supply chain. The problems are deliberately created to create extra profit. That's why the government invoked this provision of Essential Commodities Act of 1955. So now the government basically created a 4-tier priority allocation for gas, natural gas. So what are these priorities? Tier 1, that means highest priority will be given to the PNG and CNG. CNG is used for transportation, PNG is used in house. And there will be tier 2, that is for fertilizer production. Please remember, gas is important raw material for the production of the fertilizers, and fertilizers are quite important for our food production. Then the third tier will be used for industrial grid connected consumers, and a fourth one will be for other grid connected industrial and commercial consumers. So that is the allocation. Next is related to Strategic Petroleum Reserve. We have already discussed that we are too much dependent on the import. So if anything goes wrong, we are directly impacted, and that's why we want to maintain a reserve of the petroleum to deal with such urgent situation. Now these reserves are basically referred as a Strategic Petroleum Reserve. So you need to have a look at the location that can be directly asked in the exam. So Vishakhapatnam is there, Chandikhol in Odisha, then there is a Padur and Bangalore. So these locations are important. Out of these locations, Vishakhapatnam in Andhra Pradesh, Mangalore in Karnataka, and Padur in Karnataka, they are existing strategic reserve. That means they are operational, and the coming sites are Chandikol in Odisha, and Padur extension will be in Karnataka. Next is related to natural gas and petroleum product distribution. In a very simple sense, how the pricing of these products will be fixed. For that, recently the policy was announced. So who had announced this policy? Basically, it is by Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board. Now, understand, in our economy, we want to use or we want to increase the role of natural gas in the energy mix. What is energy mix? That from which sector we are using how much type of energy. For example, our target is that by 2030, 15% of the energy mix should be from gas. So that is our target. Currently, the contribution is 6.2%. Now, for this sector, there is a unified tariff policy. What is this unified tariff policy? In a very simple sense, there should be a unified tariff. Tariff basically means price. So let's say the shows is here. So within the 300 kilometers, there should be similar price. That's one zone, and then beyond 300 kilometer, there should be another zone. So previously there were three different zones. Now only two zones will be set up. One is for less than 300 kilometers. A second is for more than 300 kilometers. Next is related to the biogas. So because of this entire Strait of Hormuz crisis, there were various news that why can't we use biogas. Please understand two three important things about biogas. It is composed of methane. Roughly 60% is methane and roughly 40% is CO. So it is being used, and various initiatives such as Govardhan scheme and National Bioenergy Program, they promote its use, but it is not used that much. Next is a relief scheme. So just remember the name. This is a scheme for the export promotion, and during export promotion mission, various initiatives were announced to provide the support to our exporters. So what is full form of relief? Resilience and logistic intervention. Logistic basically means transportation for export facilitation scheme. So the name itself is self-explanatory. Somehow we want to support our exporters so that they can diversify their market. They can export their product in more and more countries, especially after the tariff issue by the US. Next is related to the road tax scheme. In a very simple sense, what is this scheme? Remission of duties and taxes on the exported product scheme. Let me give you a very simple example. Let's say this pen is there. We want to export it. Let's say the price of this pen is 100 rupee and there is a taxation of 10 rupee. So I need 100 rupee and I need to pay 10 rupee to the government. So the price in the market, international market, will be 110. Now the government is saying, since we want to promote export, we will give you this 10 rupee back. So I paid 10 rupee as a taxation to the government, but I received that amount back. This is the scheme, that is remission of duties and tax. In a very simple sense, whatever tax I am paying as a exporter, I will get that money back. Why government is doing so? Previously the price of this pen was 110, 100 plus 10 rupee. 110 was the price. Now the government gave me 10 rupee back. So ideally now I can sell this pen in 100 rupees. If I can sell it cheaper, that simply means I will be able to sell it more in the international market. Why? Because my product is cheaper. So that will give a boost to the export. That is the intention behind this scheme, somehow to provide the support to the exporters. Next is National Shipping Board. Now understand, this board is responsible for the development of shipping sector. It is a statutory body. The members are appointed through the parliament, or basically the 6 members are elected by the parliament, 4 from the Lok Sabha and 2 from the Rajya Sabha. So it is a statutory, permanent statutory body as per the provisions of Merchant Shipping Act of 1958. Next is related to InvIT. What is InvIT? In a very simple sense, let's say you want to invest 50,000 rupees in any infrastructure project. Now 50,000 is very less amount. You won't get any opportunity to invest this small amount into infrastructure because they require huge amount of investment. That's where the role of trust comes into picture. So let's say 10 people are coming together. They will give the money to the trust, and then the trust will use that entire money to invest into the infrastructure. That is the concept of InvIT. So there are two important trusts. One is REIT, that is Real Estate in investment trust, and one is InvIT. This is going to invest into real estate project. This one is going to invest into the infrastructure project. So why this InvIT was in news recently? In a very simple sense, recently NHAI, that is National Highway Authority of India, that became the first public infrastructure investment trust, and this was listed on the BSE. What is BSE? Bombay Stock Exchange. So majorly there are two prominent stock exchange. One is BSE, one is NSE. BSE is Bombay Stock Exchange, NSE is National Stock Exchange. So basically they provide a list of top companies. BSE release a list which is basically referred as Sensex, that is sensitive index. Why sensitive? Because it is a volatile, it keep on changing. And then NSE provide Nifty 50, that is the index of top 50 companies. This is related to Bureau of Indian Standards. As the name suggests, it is organization responsible for the Indian standards. Now it was established as per the provisions of the Act of 1986, Consumer Protection Act of 1986. Now there are different marks which are being used. One is ISI mark. It is basically used for industrial products or for electrical products. And then there is a hallmark which is basically used for gold and silver, and it is used for the purity of metal. In case of silver, it is voluntary as of now. And then there is a egg mark. Egg mark is used for agricultural products. The examiner can confuse you. Please remember that egg mark is for agricultural product. Then there is one more mark, eco mark, that is for environment friendly products. And then there is a hallmark. Hallmark is for purity. And then there is a ISI mark. ISI mark is for the industrial safety, whether this product follows the safety protocol or not. Next is coconut promotion scheme. So basically the objective of this scheme is to revive the production of the coconut. So how we are going to do that? To promote the non productive gardens for the coconut production. Now understand, for that coconut development board is there. Please remember, it is not under Commerce Ministry, it is under Agriculture Ministry. It is a statutory body under Agriculture Ministry. The very simple trap can be set up by examiner that it is under Commerce Ministry. No, it is not. Now as far as coconut production is concerned, Kerala is top performing, then it is followed by Tamil Nadu and Karnataka. The headquarter of Coconut Development Board is also situated in Kerala. And with this we have covered the economy section, current affairs. Next is related to security. So in security, first topic is related to the role of MSME in the defense sector. See, as far as defense sector is concerned, we are heavily dependent on imports, but now we are reducing that import dependence, and in that MSME is playing a key role. So understand the significance of MSME sector. MSME sector basically contribute roughly one third in our GDP. Roughly 60% jobs are provided by MSME, and roughly 45% of export is through MSME. So these are some of the important data related to the significance of MSME. Next is related to the SIPRI report. What is SIPRI? It is Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. So as per that, basically the weapon trends are highlighted. Now understand, as far as this report is concerned, Ukraine is on top position in terms of import of weapons, and then it is followed by India. Over a period of time, there is a decline in our import. Why there is a decline? Because now we are focusing on indigenization. That means we are trying to produce them on our own. But as far as the weapon imports are concerned, Russia is our major supplier. However, over a period of time, we are diversifying from Russia. We are diversifying away from Russia. Why that is happening? Understand, Russia and India are good friends, but so are Russia and China. We don't want to use Russian weapons against China because of the close proximity between Russia and China. So they are good friends. So of course they will know. That simply means Chinese will get to know the weakness in the Russian systems, and that's why we are trying to purchase our weapons from other countries as well. Which are those countries? For example, France is there. We have purchased Rafale from them. Rafale is 4.5 generation aircraft, and we are trying to develop our fifth generation aircraft, that is AMCA. Point is, we are diversifying so that we are not too much dependent on any particular country. Similarly, one argument is given that when it comes to countering China, India need USA and USA need India. So as far as imports are concerned, Russia is the leading contributor. 40% imports are from Russia, 29% from France, 15% from Israel. Next is related to Global Terrorism Index. So this index is basically published by IEP, that is Institute of Peace, and it is a Sydney based institute, that is Institute of Economics and Peace. So Sydney based, that is Australia based institute. As per that, Pakistan is on top position in terms of impact of terrorism, so it is most impacted country. India is on 13th position in terms of impacted country, like we are 13th most impacted country by the terrorism. Next is related to ALH. What is ALH? Advanced Light Helicopter. So ALH M3, that is Mark 3, and still missile. So recently Ministry of Defense have signed agreement for the acquisition or for the purchase of these weapons. So in a very simple sense, ALH will be provided by the HAL. What is HAL? It is Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. So this ALH has been purchased for the Coast Guard, and this still missile, this has been purchased, and this is surface to air missile, and it has been developed by the company from the, what is surface to air missile? In a very simple sense, it will be launched from surface and it is going to hit the target in the air. Then what is the air to surface missile? So it will be launched from air and then it is going to hit the target in the, and there is surface to surface missile, so it will be launched from surface and it is going to hit the target on the surface itself. Next is Minute Man. So in a very simple sense, it is the intercontinental ballistic missile by USA. Intercontinental basically means the range is quite high. Now understand, it is part of nuclear triad of USA. Nuclear triad basically means the nuclear weapons can be launched from air, they can be launched from water, they can be launched from the land. Next is gravity bombs. As the name suggests, they can be thrown and they will free fall under the impact of gravity. So the name itself is self-explanatory. Recently they were in news because USA used them. Next is military exercises in news. One is Alamite. So basically this is our exercise with Seychelles. Now for the first time our tri-services participated into this exercise. Tri-service basically means Indian Navy, Indian Air Force and Indian Army. That's why it is important. Second is exercise Sea Dragon. So this is a exercise conducted by US Navy, and it is for anti-submarine warfare. Anti-submarine warfare basically means how to destroy the submarines. And with this we have covered the security part. Now we are going to start the science section. So in science section, first topic is related to data centers. Please understand one simple thing. Just like we store clothes in Almira, we store data into servers, and the store facility for those server is basically referred as a data center. Now they consume huge amount of electricity, so that's why usually data centers are measured in terms of their power consumption. And that's why there was a news that over a period of time our data center capacity has increased. Previously it was 375 megawatt in 2020. Now it is roughly 1500 megawatt by 2025. So roughly 5 times increment is there. Now understand, they consume lot of electricity. That's one problem. Second problem is that they require huge amount of water to cool them down. So that's another problem, and that's why there is a term water bankruptcy. That simply means in those areas which are facing water scarcity, if there will be data center, it will further create more problems. Now understand the concept of data localization in this context. Data localization simply means the sensitive data of Indians should be stored within India. It should not be taken outside. So there was Justice B.N. Sri Krishna committee which had simply recommended that the sensitive financial information of the Indian people should be stored within the data server in our country. This is the stance of India. RBI had also issued a direction in this context, and there has been a previous year question by the UPSC. Now understand one more thing. Countries like USA and countries of European Union, they prefer free flow of data. What is free flow of data? That simply means they say that there should be no limitation on the flow of data. Why there should be no limitation? Understand it from their point of view. Most of these data servers are situated in these countries. That is why they would always want more and more business for them. Next is related to our regional navigation satellite system, IRNSS, which is also known as NAVIC. So understand, if we need to get the precise location of a person, we need at least 3 satellites. So 3 satellites are required for the precise location, and if we also need a time, we need 4 satellites. Recently there was a problem was that the atomic clock was not functioning, and that's why this entire issue was highlighted. What is the use of atomic clock? Atomic clock basically provide the precise time, just like USA have its GPS, India have its Navik. Various other countries have their own regional navigation system. For example, China have Bido, Europe has Galileo, and Russia has GLONASS. Next is related to discovery of the new particle by LHC. What is LHC? Large Hadron Collider. So what is the name of this new particle? This is going to be 80th particle, and it is XICC plus. So just remember that LHC, that is Large Hadron Collider, at European Organization for Nuclear Research, discovered a new particle. Now understand, as far as particles are concerned, basically they can be further subcategorized into two categories. One is bosons. Boson, try to think boson just like a cement. Cement is going to bind the bricks. So brick is basically fermion. Fermions will make the matter, but the force which will combine them, that is basically referred as boson. So it is nothing but a force similar to cement. On the other hand, fermions are similar to bricks, so they will make the entire building, and the binding force is referred as boson. Now further, the fermions can be further subcategorized into two categories. One is quarks. Usually they are found in the groups, and the group is basically referred as hadrons. On the other hand, there are leptons. Leptons are found individually. Electrons and neutrino, they are leptons. On the other hand, as far as hadrons are concerned, they are further subcategorized into baryons. So when it comes to protons and neutrons, they are basically baryons only. So one proton is nothing but two up quark and one down quark. On the other hand, one neutron is made up of two down quark and one up quark. Now if you are preparing exclusively for UPSC, basically you may find it too much complicated, but this is very basic. Various state pieces has asked question on this, and UPSC can also ask, because you need to understand these complex phenomena. That's why I have tried to simplify it. Next is related to food fortification in India. See, understand the meaning of fortification. In our country, malnutrition is a major problem. Malnutrition basically means vitamin deficiency. To deal with that problem, fortification is done. What is fortification? In a very simple sense, we are adding nutrition to the food. That is fortification. If this is done at a seed level, it is referred as biofortification. If this is done at the processing level, then it is referred as food fortification. Okay, that is the major difference. Now government of India was providing the fortified rice, but a study was conducted by IIT, and that study found out that because of the fortification, the shelf life of the rice has gone down, and that's why this entire issue was. Next is related to HPV vaccination. So basically for cervical cancer, this vaccination was introduced, and recently Prime Minister inaugurated this vaccine campaign. Now understand, cervical cancer is the only cancer that is preventable by the vaccine. What is the name of the vaccine? It is HPV vaccination. It is by human papilloma virus vaccination. Now it is sexually transmitted infection because of this virus. India has indigenously developed the vaccine. The name of the vaccine is Ceravac. In this, there is one more strategy, 90-70-90. Please remember that it is related to the cervical cancer. Next is related to Moonshoot project. So this project is related to the brain co-processors. In a very simple sense, brain co-processor basically means these devices understand how our brain functions. So they are trying to understand the brain signals so that they can process them. Next is related to digital twin initiative. Digital twin basically means we are creating one more copy. Digital basically means digital copy. So let's say there is a building, physical building is there, then we have developed a model computer, so we can see the progress from our computer itself. That is digital twin. Why it was in news? Because recently the VH Dambarnar port in Tamil Nadu, this became the first port in our country to launch this initiative, and that's why it was in news. Next is related to vehicle to everything technology. So recently TRAI, that is Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, they issued a discussion paper on this. Understand what is happening. Vehicle to everything basically means our vehicle will be able to communicate with everything around it. For example, it will be able to communicate with the traffic signals, it will be able to communicate with the other vehicles, it will be able to communicate with the cellular phones also. In that case, it will be referred as CV2X. Means cellular, V basically means vehicle, to X means everything. In a very simple sense, understand it this way. let's say we are creating a WhatsApp group. Car is basically sharing its location, another car will share its location, you are sharing your location, the traffic signal is sharing its own data. So that's how it is going to operate in oversimplified sense. Now what is the basic requirement for this? First, there should be standardization, that different vehicle companies use the same format. Second, there should be a high speed of data, 5G is the basic requirement. Third, there should be data security. Next is related to Kavach system. Kavach is nothing but anti-collision avoidance system. In a very simple sense, we are installing this system in the trains so that whenever trains come close, there will be automatic braking to prevent the collision. That is the Kavach system. It is being installed in our train. Next is related to GRUB INI. So GRUB basically means we are talking about the pregnancy. So this is a study conducted to understand the premature delivery of the babies, why that is happening, what are the factors responsible. So in this case we are using AI to find out the factors responsible for. So it has been started by Department of Technology, Biotechnology, DBT. Next is related to the scheme to promote the manufacturing of sintered rare earth permanent magnet. So why these rare earth permanent magnets are important? Because they are necessary for our electric vehicles and they are also important for defense. Please understand one thing, as far as rare earth elements are concerned, we are heavily dependent on imports. Rare earth elements are basically 17 elements. They are not rare. Their extraction is quite difficult. That's why the term rare. Now, as far as India is concerned, we are dependent on imports. That's why we are now trying to diversify our supply chain. Plus, we are also focusing on domestic production. For that purpose, Government of India had announced National Critical Mineral Mission. Apart from that, there is one more organization named as CABIL. What is the objective of CABIL? CABIL is basically Khaniz Bidesh India Limited. So it is collaborating with different countries to ensure the supply of the rare earth elements and other critical minerals. Next is World Obesity Atlas. So basically it was released by World Obesity Federation. In a very simple sense, it talks about the obesity and it has highlighted rising cases of obesity in our country, and India is on second position globally in terms of overweight children. Now understand, this is going to create a series of problems. Because of obesity, there will be a lot of lifestyle disease, and lifestyle diseases are one of the leading causes of death in our country. Next is related to GLP. So you might have seen a lot of celebrities became very slim in a very short span of time. Why they became so? Because of this GLP. Now ideally it was supposed to be used for diabetes, but people started using it for other purpose, and that's why the CDSCO, that is Central Drugs Standard Control Organization, basically they have issued a notice that the usage should be prohibited, the advertisement should be prohibited. So it has prohibited the advertisement of these drugs. The common name for these drugs are Ozempic or Wegovy. So understand what is happening in this case. These medicine, they are not magical. What they do, they suppress your hunger hormone, so you won't feel hungry, and if you won't feel hungry, you won't eat. If you won't eat, your body will start using its existing fat deposition. But what is happening in this case is that it is changing your hormonal balance, and that's why in a long term it may have adverse impact. Next is related to white fat and brown fat. So understand, white fat basically is a storage of fat in the form of triglycerides. Brown fat basically convert the energy into heat. So whenever our body need heat, so energy is converted into heat with the usage of a brown fat. So white fat is basically around our organs to protect our organs. Next is related to anti-proton. See, understand, proton have positive charge, so anything anti basically means the opposite charge will be there. So protons have positive charge, anti-proton will have negative charge. Why it was in news recently? Because for the first time it was transported by road. In a very simple sense, the scientists at the European Organization for Nuclear Research, they transported the antiprotons by road. Antimatter particles have a negative charge. Next is related to megamas. Now understand, let's say there are two galaxies, they collided with each other. Because of that, there is a beam of electromagnetic radiation. This beam is simplified as maser. There is a collision of galaxies, and because of that, there is a beam of radiation. This was discovered using the telescope. The name of the telescope is Meerkat telescope. Where it is situated? It is situated in South Africa. Now it is a part of Square Kilometre Array telescope. So it is one of the component of that telescope. This Square Kilometre Array telescope, this is going to be world's largest radio telescope. Next is related to molecular clouds. So basically scientists have discovered these clouds near the Milky Way galaxy, which is our galaxy. What are molecular clouds? In a very simple sense, they are made up of gases such as hydrogen, and they are made up of dust. So this leads to the formation of molecules, and subsequently it leads to the process of star formation. Next is related to dimethyl ether. So recently CSIR basically created a new process for its production. It can be used as a second generation biofuel. Now it is a clean biofuel, and it is non-toxic, and it can be an alternative to LPG. What is LPG? It is liquefied petroleum gas. Now we are going to cover the environment section. Within environment section, first topic is related to EIA. What is EIA? Environment impact assessment. Please understand in a very simple sense, whenever there will be a big project, it will have impact on the society, it will have impact on the environment. So whenever such project is approved, before that a study is conducted to understand its social impact, which is basically referred as social impact assessment, and to understand its impact on the environment, which is basically referred as environment impact assessment. This is being done as per the provisions of Environment Protection Act of 1980. Okay, so two important studies: EIA, that is Environment Impact Assessment, and SIA, that is Social Impact Assessment. Now, recently, one issue was highlighted. The issue was that whenever a project is sent for approval at the state level, sometimes the state authority take too much time to approve it. This leads to delay in that project. So that is a barrier in ease of doing business. For environmental clearances, there is a specific portal. The name of the portal is Parivesh Portal. Now understand this entire issue. So EIA is there. EIA is as per the Environment Protection Act of 1986. Now there is a specific standing committee. The name of this standing committee is Standing Committee on Environment Impact Appraisal. Okay, let's say a project has been sent to the state level authority, and if the state level authority did not approve it in 120 days, what will happen? The project will be sent to the Parivesh portal. Once it is sent to the Parivesh portal, the decision will be taken by this committee, not by the state level authority. So in a very simplified sense, you sent a project for approval at the state level. The state authorities did not approve it for 120 days. Then the project will be sent to the Parivesh portal. From that portal, the standing committee, which is a specific body, standing committee will take that. That is the entire change. Now this environment impact assessment is mandatory for the projects which have the worth of more than 50 crore. Now as far as environment is concerned, a few important Supreme Court judgments are there. One is MC Mehta case, then there is a Velo citizens case. MC Mehta is for environmental conservation. Velo citizens case is related to the polluter pay principle and the precautionary principle. Polluter pay principle simply means if you are polluting the environment, you need to pay money or you need to pay the fine. Precautionary principle basically means we should take adequate precautions to conserve our environment or to save our environment. Next is related to India's updated NDC. What is NDC? Nationally Determined Contribution. See, after the Paris Agreement, the countries decided that they will announce their goals. In a very simple sense, they will announce their target, what they are going to do to deal with the problem of climate change. These goals are basically referred as NDC, Nationally Determined Contribution. That simply means every country will decide its own target. Now since they are decided by countries, of course they are not legally binding, so they are the voluntary target announced by the countries. Now India has recently announced its targets for 2031 till 2035. What are our targets? First target is related to reduction in the emission intensity. That simply means for GDP how much we are emitting. So we have already reduced our emission intensity. The previous target was 33 to 35%. This was the target for 2030, and now we have updated this target for 2030. Now it is 45%. For the next 5 years we have increased it to further 47%. Okay, so in a very simple sense, our in oversimplified sense, let's say previously we were emitting 1 kg of CO2. Now by 2035 our objective is that instead of 1 kg we emit only half kg, because roughly 47%, that's the target. Now how we will be able to do it? By using the clean technology. That's why you might have noticed that government is emphasizing on the modern technologies. Government is also emphasizing on the renewable energy because that have a lower carbon emission. Second is related to the share of non-fossil fuel. So previous target was 40%, which was to be achieved till 2030. Now we have updated that target to 50%. The new target for 2035 is 60%. That simply means 60% of our energy will be from non-fossil fuel. Then there is a target for carbon sink. Carbon sink basically means we are expanding our capabilities to capture the carbon. Please understand, we had announced 5 targets which were referred as Panchamrit. So that is an extension. These targets are an extension of that only. So carbon sink basically means we are increasing our forest and tree cover. So previous target was 2.5 billion to 3 billion ton of CO2 equivalent. That means we will plant new trees, we will increase our forest cover so that we can capture more carbon. Now the new target is from 3.5 to 4 billion ton of CO2 equivalent. Next is National Report on Convention of Biological Diversity. See, there are 3 important United Nations conventions related to climate change, and that is UNFCCC, that is United Nations Framework Convention on Climate. Then for desertification, that means to prevent desertification, we have UNCCD, that is United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, and then there is a UNCBD. CBD is for Convention for Biological Diversity. For that purpose, recently the Environment Ministry submitted its 7th national report under this convention of CBD. Basically, CBD is related to biological diversity, so of course that is going to be focused on biodiversity, and this is our first full assessment since the adoption of the coming Montreal Global Biodiversity Frame. Now the name suggests this is for biodiversity. What was the target under this coming Montreal? First thing first, it is non-binding and it is successor of Aichi target. So in a very simple sense, previously there were Aichi target, then there were coming Montreal biodiversity targets. In that context, there is 30 by 30 initiative. What is this 30 by 30 initiative? Basically, the objective is to conserve 30% of the land and sea and to restore the degraded land and sea by 2030. So 30% conservation, 30% restoration by 2030. Next is related to first national report on Nagoya Protocol. Understand, Nagoya Protocol is related to ABS, that is access and benefit sharing. In a very simple sense, tribal communities, let's say, have various knowledge. Let's say they have a traditional knowledge how to use these leaves. Now companies will come and use those knowledge aspect and they will create commercial products. But in this case, tribal communities will not get anything. That's why there is a Nagoya Protocol. This talks about the sharing of the benefits. In that context, recently India basically published its first report. So just remember, Nagoya Protocol is related to ABS. What is ABS? Access and benefit sharing. Under this, there is a provision of prior informed consent for accessing the biological resources. That simply means if you are a company, if you want to use any traditional knowledge, you need to take the prior permission. For the biodiversity, we have Biological Diversity Act of 2002, which talks about 3-tier structure. What is 3-tier structure? At national level, we have NBA. What is NBA? National Biodiversity Authority. At state level, we have state biodiversity boards, and at local level, we have BMC, that is Biological Management Committees. Next is related to ISA. So ISA is International Solar Alliance. It is an initiative by India. Basically, the objective is to harness the solar energy. Now the headquarters is in Gurugram in Gwal Pahadi. Recently it was in news because recently it completed 10 years. Next is related to the impact of climate change. So previously there was a flash flood in Dharli in Uttarakhand. So previously it was assumed that this flash flood was because of the cloud outburst. Cloud outburst basically means sudden rainfall is there. But after a proper study, it was found out that it was because of deglaciation. What is this deglaciation? See, understand, glacier is there. Because of climate change, the temperature is increasing. Because of the increasing temperature, it is melting. And that's why what will happen? Let's say there is a lake. This is a lake. The boundary of this lake is made up of ice. Because of boundary, the water is stored there. But now because of temperature, the boundary is melting. And that's why what will happen? Suddenly, this entire water will be released. This sudden outburst will lead to the flood. And this kind of flood is basically referred as GLOF. What is GLOF? Basically, it is glacial lake outburst of flood. So that is the issue. And because of climate change, the more and more glaciers are melting. Next is related to small hydropower development scheme. As the name suggests, the objective is to develop the small hydropower projects. Please understand, small hydropower projects are under the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. It is different from large hydropower projects. Apart from that, understand one more thing. Arunachal Pradesh is basically celebrating the decade of hydropower. from 2025 to 2035. That simply means they are trying to utilize the hydropower potential. Now, what project will be considered as a small project? So in a very simple sense, those with the capacity of less than 25 megawatt, they will be considered as small hydropower project, and it will be handled by the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. Next is related to United Nations World Water Development Report. So this report is published by United Nations, and this was published on the World Water Day. What was the theme of World Water Day? Water and gender. Next is related to Sustainable Development Goals Bulletin Report on Prosperity. So basically this report has been released by MOSPI. What is MOSPI? It is Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. It talks about various SDG performance. For example, in SDG 7 we have achieved 100% electrification. In SDG 9 we have improved our connectivity infrastructure, and under that there is a provision of USOF, that is Universal Service Obligation Fund. Now that has been renamed as Digital Bharat Nidhi. So what is happening under this is that the telecom operators, they need to allocate certain amount of fund for the development of rural infrastructure, rural telecom infrastructure. Then there is goal number 11, that is related to cities, and for that purpose what Bharat mission is there for the waste management. Then there is goal number 10 to reduce inequality. So basically over a period of time the Gini coefficient has gone down in terms of consumption. In terms of consumption it has gone down. Please understand, we don't have any data related to the Gini coefficient on income, because as a country we don't collect income data. For that now the new survey has been announced, but as of now we don't have explicit income data, but we have a data related to consumption, and that is basically household consumption expenditure survey is there. Now understand what is the meaning of score in this Gini coefficient. So if the score is 0, that simply means everyone is equal. If the score is 1, that simply means there is a high inequality. If the score is moving towards 1, that means inequality is rising. If the score is moving towards 0, that means the inequality is declining. Next is related to the WMO report, and the name of the report is State of the Global Climate Report. So this report basically highlighted the energy imbalance. What is this energy imbalance? How much solar radiation is coming and how much solar radiation is going. Now if the solar radiation, coming solar radiation and outgoing solar radiation, if the gap is too high, that simply means over a period of time the temperature of the planet will increase. So it simply says that if there is a positive earth energy, that simply means that more and more heat is being accumulated. Next is related to National Highway Green Cover Index, and the name itself is self-explanatory. We are talking about the greenery around the highways. Next is related to National Productivity Council. So this has been designated as the organization for environmental audit. Audit basically means whether the environmental rules are properly followed or not. Now as far as National Productivity Council is concerned, it is a founding member of Asian Productivity Council, and the headquarter of Asian Productivity Council is situated in Tokyo in Japan. Next is related to BEE. BEE is Bureau of Energy Efficiency. It is a statutory body under the Ministry of Power. It was in news because recently it completed 25 years. Basically conduct a program that is energy conservation program or star rating program. I think in 2016 or 2017 there was a question on this star rating itself. So please remember that whenever we see star rating, better rating basically means less electricity consumption. For example, 5-star AC will consume less electricity in comparison to 3-star. So that star rating program is by BEE. It is under Ministry of Power, and it is statutory body as per the Energy Conservation Act of 2001. Next is MC Mehta case. So we have already covered that. It talks about the environmental protection, and it talks about the doctrine of public trust. Public trust basically means we are not the owners of these resources. We need to manage them as a trustee, and we need to safely hand over them to the next generation. In that case, there is one more important judgment, that is Godavarman judgment, which is related to the definition of forest area. So in that judgment, basically the court said that even those which are outside the conventional definition of forest should be considered as a forest for the purpose of conservation. Apart from that, there was one more judgment related to the retrospective environmental clearance. So the name of the judgment is SP Muthuraman case. In this case, basically the court banned the retrospective environmental clearance. However, later that judgment was taken back. What is retrospective environment clearance? In a very simple sense, you started the project, you don't have environmental clearance as of now, but you started it. Later, let's say after 2 years, the government gave you clearance from the back date. That is referred as retrospective environmental clearance. Next is related to ocean thermal energy conversion. In a very simple sense, understand it this way. Lakshadweep is there. It is island. So there is a problem of clean drinking water. The water is salty, so we need to remove the salt. For that, we need energy. So through this mechanism, what we are doing, we are generating electricity. We are using that electricity for desalination plant. Desalination plant basically means we are removing the salt from the water. Next is related to dark oxygen. So dark oxygen basically means oxygen which is available at a dark level. Dark level basically means at those level where direct sunlight penetration is not possible. So previously it was assumed that photosynthesis is the only source of oxygen, but now this shows that oxygen is also possible without photosynthesis, because the areas which are at deep level, so sunlight will not reach there, so of course photosynthesis is not happening there. Still oxygen is there. That simply means someone else is producing it. So it is produced without sunlight via electrochemical reactions, and this simply challenge the belief that photosynthesis is the only natural for oxygen source. Next is related to Sipkila Pass. So this pass is situated in Himachal Pradesh. Why it was in news? Because uh, we have decided to open it for our trade. Because of the conflict between India and China, this was stopped, but now it has been resumed. So three important passes are there. One is Sipkila, one is Lipu Lake, and one is Nathula. Next is related to Rossby waves. We understand what is happening. Because of climate change, the temperature is rising, and that's why heat waves are rising. These heat waves are further intensified by the Rossby waves. What are Rossby waves? In a very simple sense, they are because of the rotation of Earth, and they are the westward moving waves. So three important points: temperature is rising, heat waves are rising. These heat waves are further intensified by the Rossby waves. What are Rossby waves? They are because of the rotation of the Earth, and they are in the westward direction. So with this, we have covered the environment section. Now we are going to cover the social issues section, and first topic is related to the euthanasia. See, euthanasia basically means EU, basically means good. So euthanasia simply means killing someone. Why it is considered as good? Because we are talking about those people who are suffering from terminally ill disease or from something which cannot be cured. So they are suffering, and the argument is that why not to let them die with dignity rather than forcing them to suffer. So that's why there is a concept of euthanasia. Now understand, euthanasia can be further subcategorized into two categories: active and passive. In case of active euthanasia, basically the doctor is giving some substance to ensure the death of the patient. In passive euthanasia, the doctor is just removing the support system. Okay, let me give you one basic example which I use it in every class. Let's say there is an exam, and you and your friend are sitting in the exam. So in one case, you are just telling your friend the answer. Okay, that is active role. Your active role is there. You are telling answer. Okay, answer of third will be B. Okay, this is how you are actively participating. In second case, what you are doing, you are just showing your notebook to your friend. You are not saying anything. You are just writing it down this way. Okay, and your friend is able to see your notebook. So that is passive. In that case, you don't have a direct role. So similarly, if the doctor will have a direct role, that will be active. If the doctor basically withdraw the support, that is passive. So active euthanasia is not allowed in our country. In some countries it is allowed, but not in India. Passive euthanasia was recently allowed in a case, and the Supreme Court allowed it in the Harish Rana versus Union of India case. So that is the entire issue. You need to understand the basic. Next is related to Transgender Person Protection of Rights Amendment Act of 2026. Transgenders are given the status of third gender. Now this act was enacted to provide them rights. In this, previously, what was the condition? Condition was that the transgenders had the right to self-declare. Self-declare basically means they will say, or self-recognize basically means they will recognize themselves as third gender on their own will. So let's say some person is there and they think that they are transgender, so they can declare themselves as transgender. That was the provision before this amendment. After this amendment, the process has been changed. Now there is no provision of self-declaration. So how a person will be considered as a transgender? The district level authority, that is DM, will basically provide this, that this person is transgender, and that will be on the basis of a medical board. This is the entire process. So that's why there was a protest against this. Previously it was self declaration, and now it will be on the basis of the recommendation of the medical board, and it will be done by the district magistrate. So it now exclude the self perceived gender identity, and the certificate of identity will be issued by the DM after the examination, and after the recommendation of the designated medical board. Apart from that, there is a National Council for Transgender Person. It modify the composition of the or council. Basically, there will be members from the states and union territories. Now in this context, please remember this yoga karta principle. So basically, yoga karta principle advocate for the self identification without any medical procedure. In a very simple sense, as per these principle, the person should be able to declare themselves as a transgender without requirement of any medical board. But now after this amendment, of course, we don't follow this one. So just remember that examiner can set a trap that the 2026 amendment follow the yoga karta principles. Next is related to child adoption. So for adoption, we have a body named as CARA. What is CARA? Central Adoption Resource Authority. And the adoption provisions are regulated as per the provisions of Juvenile Justice Protection of Child Act 2015. Since it completed 10 years in 2025, so this can be as a statement. Now for the inter-country adoption, we have Hague Convention. This CARA is under Ministry of Women and Child Development. Now please remember one thing. If someone adopt a child, irrespective of the age of child, the adopting mother will get the maternity benefit. The maternity benefits are provided in our country as per the provisions of Maternity Benefit Act. So there is a provision of 12 weeks of maternity benefit. The child is adopted regardless of the age of child. Next is related to the AI and its use for the personalized learning. In a very simple sense, we can use AI to provide different lessons to different students according to their requirement. For example, someone is, let's say, not getting the concepts in environment, so we can design more lessons of environment for them. For someone else, science may be difficult, so we can design more science lessons. That's how the personalized learning will function. Next is Impact for Nutrition Initiative. So it is an initiative of Niti Aayog and United Nations Children's Fund. The objective is, as the name suggests, the focus is on nutrition level, and for that purpose there is ACE card initiative. What is this ACE card initiative? ACE stands for Asset for Nutrition, Corporate Social Responsibility for Nutrition, and Employees Engagement for Nutrition. So with this, we have covered the social issues. Now we are going to cover the culture part, which is going to be the last part. So in culture, the first news is related to Mahad Satyagrah, which is also known as Chavdar Tank Satyagrah. So basically, this was a march towards the Chavdar tank in Maharashtra. The objective was to fight against the problem of untouchability. Okay. Now, why it was in news? Because it completed 100 years. So in 2026-27, it is basically the 100 years of the Satyagraha. This is about the rights of Dalit, and 20th of March is observed as the Social Empowerment Day. Now, to deal with the problem of untouchability, basically INC, that is Congress, had set up a committee, and the committee was under Madan Mohan Malviya. Apart from that, few other initiatives were there related to untouchability. For example, Satya Sodak Samaj was there, which was an initiative by Jyotiba Phule. Self-respect movement was there, which was by E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar. This also completed 100 years, so there can be a question related to this. This was in Tamil Nadu to fight against the caste discrimination. And then there was Harijan Sevak Sangh, which was set up by the Gandhiji, and it was of 1932. Last news is related to Gyan Bharatam National Manuscript Survey. So in a very simple sense, we are digitizing our manuscript. So let's say paper is there, manuscript is there, so we are creating their digital copies so that we can conserve them for future. And with this, we have completed the monthly magazine of Vision IAS March 2026. The PDF of this lecture is available on the Civils Academy app. Thank you, and that's all for the day.